exactly the same way it does today. Animals exploited each other, trying to get ahead. The rules of the survival game have always been the same, only the players have changed. But long-term success depends on being able to cope with the unexpected. A catastrophe like this could happen again. But whenever life stumbles, other life steps in and seizes the chance to triumph. After the dinosaurs became extinct, small furry survivors inherited the Earth and gave rise to every mammal we know today, including ourselves. Evolution is usually a slow process, but after a mass extinction, it goes into overdrive, filling the vacuum left by the animals that have disappeared. The resourceful mammals were quick to take advantage of new opportunities. By coincidence, flowering plants were also on the rise. The mammals soon discovered novel foods like nectar, pollinating insects, and fruit. The furry pioneers began to specialize as they divided the new world between them. Today, mammals fill the roles once held by the giant reptiles. Giraffes specialize in reaching the treetops, just as sauropods once did. And big cats tear up large prey, following in the footsteps of Tyrannosaurus. The extinction of the dinosaurs allowed mammals to take center stage, and that made our own evolution possible. The story of life is also the story of extinction. Some parts of the planet look as if they've been lifeless for an eternity. But rocks tell a different story. Sometimes the forces of erosion open windows onto the past. It's because of fossils that we know that dinosaurs ever existed. But most of life's secrets are still hidden in the rocks. Each step down the strata is a step back in time. And sometimes they give us a glimpse into the past. The conditions needed for a fossil to form are rare, so it's only occasionally that rocks hold clues about life on Earth. Some chapters are missing altogether, but where fossils are abundant, we can learn a lot about the world of that time. 200 million years ago, rocks preserved some rare insights into the story of one mass extinction. This was the time of the clams. Their watery homes buffered them from the fires that raged on land, and their shells protected them from early predators. For millions of years, their world changed very little. So neither did they. The clams' simple design had been a huge success, but they were heading for disaster. A new generation of predators with superior weaponry invaded the clams' world. They were crustaceans with claws. Until then, thin shells had provided ample protection against predators. But predation had just shifted up a gear. The claw was a huge advance in shell-destroying technology. The crustaceans caused carnage on the sea floor, but their claws were just the first blow. For the clams, the next deadly innovation was closer to home. Carnivorous snails, relatives of the clams, evolved a tongue like a drill. This rasping tool could grind through the toughest shells. Once the clams' defences were breached, the killer snails sucked out their prey's innards through the drill hole. The clams were under siege. A third blow came from fish. Sharks had existed for millions of years and never posed a threat to the clams. But from sharks came a new generation of specialist shell destroyers, skates and rays. These flattened seabed dwellers had powerful jaws that could easily crunch through fragile shell. Before this predatory assault, clams had covered the sea floor. Now, their numbers collapsed. This was the end of an era. Clams either shaped up or faced extinction. Clams hadn't changed in millions of years, but a few kinds managed to adapt quickly and avoid extinction. Some escaped by burrowing out of reach. Others, like the mussels, fled to the edge of the sea, taking advantage of the tides to leave their old enemies behind. But if adaptability is the secret of success, why have some ancient creatures never changed? The aardvark is a design classic. It has outlived most of the early mammals, but is virtually identical to the first aardvarks preserved in the fossil record. Aardvarks eat ants and termites, and for 70 million years they've hunted nothing else. Valves in the nose keep out soil, powerful claws make light work of digging, and upside-down eyelashes deflect flying dirt. Aardvarks are totally specialised for eating termites. Tiny termites seem a strange choice of food for such a large mammal, but they are the aardvark's secret of survival. These insects have been reliably numerous for hundreds of millions of years, giving termite eaters the ultimate in job security. An aardvark can break into a termite mound with ease, using its huge claws to smash through the rock-hard mud. Termites do fight back, squirting caustic chemicals at the intruder. But the aardvark is rarely deterred. The longer the predator stays, the more termites rise from the depths and swarm over it, but to no effect. The aardvark is now so specialised, it couldn't eat anything else. Because it laps up termites through a tubular snout, the aardvark has lost its front teeth. This would prevent it changing diet if termites ever vanished. The aardvark needs enormous claws and sturdy limbs to get into termite mounds, but these would be too clumsy for chasing larger prey. This specialist will never be a flexible creature, and yet its future looks secure. The long-term survival of any predator is usually linked to its prey, and it's likely there will still be plenty of termites in the future. Other specialists are more vulnerable. The cheetah is a dedicated gazelle killer. But the cat's extreme speed comes at a cost. Reduced bulk and strength. It can no longer kill with brute force. It can trip a gazelle, but this tactic works with few other animals. Its jaws fit perfectly around a gazelle's windpipe, but they don't have the power to choke other prey. The cheetah's genes for swift hunting will pass to its young, giving them an edge during their lifetime. But the specializations that help individual cheetahs are actually handicapping the long-term survival of the cheetah line. The African plains seem full of prey for big cats, but a cheetah is now very short of options. Having sacrificed strength for speed to catch gazelles, most of the other wildlife is now beyond its reach. The cheetah is not even strong enough to guarantee protection for its cubs. Every year, large numbers are lost to slower but more powerful lions. This spirited attempt to distract the lion has worked, but it'll be many months before the cubs are out of danger. These elegant cats are so reliant on gazelles that if their prey ever became extinct or evolved a way of outrunning them, cheetahs would soon disappear. As the fastest land animal, the cheetah is a pinnacle of evolution. But ironically, its success may be short-lived, just like many specialists before it. Nowhere is the triumph of flexible behaviour more dramatically seen than on the barren island of Hispaniola in the Galapagos. Mockingbirds share this harsh shoreline with seabird colonies. They live by opening seeds with their sharp, powerful beaks. The first mockingbirds to arrive would have faced difficulties, as seeds can be scarce. But the biggest challenge was to find enough fresh water. Seabirds get water from the fish they eat, but the mockingbirds had to find other ways to get liquid. They began to investigate abandoned eggs, but the supply of eggs is highly seasonal and there are never enough to go around. So these flexible creatures found an unusual alternative. Marine iguanas are common on this island, and mockingbirds often clean parasites from their skin. Removing ticks can spill small amounts of blood, and it may have been this that led the birds to develop their unique method of hydration. The mockingbirds of Hispaniola have become vampires. The beaks that evolved for seed eating are perfect for this new role. With no freshwater pools, this island should support very few mockingbirds, but their opportunistic approach to finding fluid has solved that problem. When they peck at other creatures, they only enlarge existing wounds, but they may be just a step away from attacking undamaged flesh and opening up new opportunities for blood-sucking. These mockingbirds may be the founders of a new dynasty of avian vampires. Mockingbirds have used their resourceful behavior to conquer a challenging environment. They share this ability with an ancient survivor. Crocodiles were successful long before the dinosaurs. Since they first appeared, millions of other animals have come and gone. So why have these prehistoric reptiles hardly changed? One reason is that crocodiles are not picky eaters. They will eat anything they can catch, regardless of size. Crocodiles are also widespread, so if they die out in one corner of the globe, they can recolonize from another. Their ability to live in water meant they could shelter from fires and storms. Our planet is constantly changing, and protection from the elements has ensured the survival of many animals. For over 4 billion years, the Earth has been reshaped by the extreme physical forces battering its surface. During this vast stretch of time, the same violent forces have taken their toll on life. And at times conditions on Earth became so severe that life was virtually eradicated altogether. Five mass extinctions have struck in our planet's long history, but the greatest of all was 250 million years ago in an age known as the Permian. This was a time of great upheaval in the Earth's crust. The planet was shaken to its core. Poisonous gases filled the atmosphere, trapping the sun's rays and sending temperatures soaring. Seas and lakes stagnated and began to dry out. Many creatures from that early time, including brachiopods and clams, were stranded as seas and lakes transformed into salt pans and scorched earth. The scale of the loss is hard to imagine, and many of life's branches died forever. But somehow, survivors pulled through. Among them were two lines of reptiles. One line gave rise to the dinosaurs, and the other to an animal still alive today on an island near New Zealand. The tuatara outlived the dinosaurs, but was nearly driven to extinction by the rise of mammals. But remarkably, no mammals have ever reached this island, and the tuatara has survived. Theirs is definitely life in this slow lane. Occasionally, they intimidate their neighbours and settle disputes with short bursts of aggression. But these quickly leave them exhausted. The tuatara may never be abundant again, and if mainland predators ever breach this island's natural defences, history suggests the outcome would be catastrophic. 3 million years ago, just such an invasion occurred on the once separate continents of North and South America. The Earth's crust was on the move, and the two islands drifted towards each other on a lake of molten rock. As the gap closed, the seafloor folded, pushing up the Isthmus of Panama. Animals that had evolved apart now came face to face in an epic battle for survival. Armadillos, anteaters, and possums moved north, while bears, wild dogs, and cats pushed south. Moving into the jungles of South America, these deadly cats gave rise to many of the variations still found today. From spotted cats to jaguars and jaguarundis, cats changed the face of predation in South America. Before long, animals like ocelots were hunting the jungles. Unlike the native marsupial predators, these cats could tackle anything. Their speed, power and flexibility were light years ahead of their rivals. And much of the South American fauna was hunted to extinction. The South's native predators would have looked much like this quoll. They were less efficient hunters than the cats, and that became a problem. Their forests were now invaded by new prey, too fast for them to catch. The southern predators were no match for the new wave of North American rodents, while the cats, who had evolved to hunt them, had more success. In the end, animals from the north proved too strong for their southern counterparts. Although there were casualties on both sides, the animals from the south suffered the most. "3 million years later, a huge bird would be the first victim in a new wave of island extinctions. This time, drifting continents were not to blame. The culprit was man. The dodo was flightless. Mauritius had no natural predators, and the bird's ancestors lost the ability to fly, as they became specialized to live and hunt on the ground. The bird was ill-prepared to defend itself against new arrivals. Dutch sailors began visiting Mauritius during long voyages to replenish their supplies. They brought with them monkeys and pigs, animals that would play a big part in the dodo's downfall. When the sailors first arrived, the dodos were sitting ducks. Even when they learned to run, they were no match for human hunters. The sailors ate dodos and also stocked their ships with large numbers. But they didn't drive the dodo to extinction. It was the monkeys and pigs they brought with them. The dodo only laid a single egg and grew slowly. They were no match for these introduced predators. Alien invaders have been driving native animals to extinction at an ever-increasing rate, and island creatures are still the most at risk. This is Guam, a remote island in the mid-Pacific. Its rocky coastline and tall cliffs once made a protective fortress for its native wildlife. But the arrival of modern transportation shattered Guam's isolation. Animals can now cross the globe in a single day. Journeys that once took millions of years can be made in a matter of hours. In the 1940s, some animals made a journey that would change the island of Guam forever. A ship from New Guinea arrived, carrying some dangerous stowaways. Brown tree snakes, These predators were efficient killers in their homeland, but on Guam, they would prove even deadlier. The snake's nocturnal habits allowed them to go unnoticed for quite a while. But each morning revealed the deadly toll they were taking on Guam's wildlife. Birds, like this rail, began to disappear. They had evolved on an island free from predators, and the invaders sent their numbers tumbling. As the snake's numbers climbed, bird populations collapsed. For Guam's wildlife, the snake's calling card was a symbol of disaster. Insect numbers boomed, their populations no longer held in check by birds. Spiders also benefited, and today Guam's forests are often choked with webs. Island animals have always been vulnerable to extinction, but today islands aren't only found at sea. The Amazon rainforest in Brazil is still home to more species than anywhere else on Earth. But each year its area is reduced by logging, and, perhaps more significantly, the forest is being fragmented into a series of islands. But are animals living on these islands more likely to become extinct? Loggers were asked to spare patches of rainforest as an experiment. Scientists catalogued the plants and animals living in them, then waited to see what would happen to the island's diversity of life. Land that had been exposed by logging soon became eroded and scorched, trapping animals in their islands. Would these animals be able to survive? Signs of decay were everywhere. Trees near the edge of the islands were dying, killed by the light and dry winds that could now penetrate. Many insects were gone, along with the birds that ate them. Without monkeys, the canopy fell silent. Spider monkeys needed plenty of forest to find enough fruit. Being tree dwellers, they could not cross the scorched open ground to the next patch of forest, and so they starved. Without the monkeys, uneaten fruit rotted. This meant that their seeds were not dispersed, so young seedlings were unable to replace older trees as they died. Many of these extinctions were predictable, but some resulted from a domino effect as the loss of one animal led to the loss of others. This pig, for example, may be responsible for the fate of a frog. Peccaries make wallows by scouring out puddles in wet areas, and many creatures rely on these ponds to breed. This is a striped monkey frog. It lays its eggs in trees overhanging wallows. For the egg's vulnerable early stage, they develop in the relative safety of the canopy. But when the time comes to hatch, they all leave together, cascading on a mucus slide into the wallow, ready to change into froglets. But peccaries are large social animals, and to find enough food to support a whole group, they must travel great distances. Confined to a small island of forest, they starve. Without the action of peccaries to keep them full of water, wallows dry out and fill with leaves. And with the wallows gone, many frogs have nowhere to breed. Slowly, the frogs disappear. Most of these extinctions happened because smaller areas of forest held smaller populations, less able to bounce back from disaster. Earth's forests today cover just 1/10 of their former area. Results from the rainforest experiment suggest that half of the species they once held have already been lost. This is extinction on the same scale and at a similar rate to the one that wiped out the dinosaurs. It is the beginning of our planet's 6th mass extinction. As before, when faced with disaster, specialists will be more vulnerable than other animals. In China, giant pandas are incredibly picky about their food. Eating bamboo is about the only thing they do, but curiously, they aren't very good at it. The panda can harvest bamboo quickly thanks to a specialized thumb for gripping leaves. But its intestines are not good at digesting plant matter, and most of it passes straight through. Because of their inefficient digestive system, pandas need to eat huge quantities of bamboo. This has become one of their biggest problems. Many stands of bamboo are cleared to make way for human agriculture, and those that aren't go through natural cycles of death and regeneration. When one stand disappears, the panda migrates to a new one. But now that pandas are trapped in small islands of forest, they have nowhere to go when their local bamboo dies. And so they starve. If the panda could leave its bamboo island or find a new source of food, it may be able to assure its survival. But the panda is not that kind of animal. The black bear in North America is a close relative of the panda and has a similar digestive system. But unlike its bamboo-fixated cousin, this bear eats almost anything. Black bears are amazingly resourceful in their relentless quest for worms, grubs, and ants. Although black bears evolved from the same ancestral stock as pandas, their flexible behavior gives them an enormous edge in the survival game. Most of the bear's original forest has been cut down or fragmented into islands, yet there are as many black bears now as there were when the first white settlers arrived. The same changes that spell disaster for the panda in China spell opportunity for the resourceful black bear. Many modern bears have almost given up on wild foods and wait at rubbish dumps for fresh deliveries instead. With this constant supply of high-energy junk food, they put on weight, which allows them to have more young. It is the black bear's creative attitude to finding food that has inevitably brought them out of the forest to scavenge. Bears are displaying the flexibility of true survivors, but their long-term success is not guaranteed. Their future will largely depend on us tolerating their habits. If we continue to do so, the black bear should survive this sixth extinction. Our world is rapidly changing. Human technology, moving more quickly than evolution, might protect us. But what will become of the rest of life on Earth? The truth is, we just don't know. The web of life is complex. We can't predict what will happen as we cut its delicate threads. We could ignore wildlife and only preserve creatures vital to our own survival. But our past has always been tightly bound to the natural world. Without it, our future could be lonely and uncertain. We now have the knowledge to save much of what remains. And given the slightest chance, life can bounce back. Nature's amazing powers of